So, on January, and this continues my letter to the council, on January 22nd, 2018, the Planning Board unanimously adopted the City of Claremont Master Plan. For the first time, the city's master plan included a chapter on energy with a focus on addressing energy efficiency and local energy policy. The adoption of an Energy Advisory Committee fulfilled Goal 1, Objective 1 of the Energy chapter. In addition to Goal 1, Objective 1, the city has also acted on other goals, objectives outlined in the Energy chapter of the Master Plan. On June 29th, City Manager McKnight, City Planner McCrory, and I participated in the kickoff meeting of the Municipal Roundtable to develop strategies for the reduction of greenhouse emissions through the use of renewable energy. The roundtable, hosted by the Conservation Law Foundation, is comprised of 6 cities: Claremont, Concord, Keene, Lebanon, Nashua, and Portsmouth, who are recognized as actively engaged in this effort. Our participation supports Goal 1, Objective 2 of the Energy chapter, which states, in quotes, "The city should participate in local, regional, statewide, and national energy forums and roundtables to study best practices, form regional energy alliances, and share information gained with the public in order to support awareness and transition to sustainable practices citywide." I will be forwarding the council via Doré documentation that was presented at the kickoff meeting, as it is a great overview of what these other communities have done or will be doing, and you have that in your packet. While the city administration is engaged in other efforts that respond to various goals and objectives outlined in the Energy chapter, there are those that the councils need to address. Goal 2, Objective 2 states, adopt RSA 72:61-72, which will permit the city to offer a property tax exemption for small-scale renewable energy generation projects, such as solar panels and small wind-powered energy systems. I have raised the topic of adopting this RSA previously. I can't remember when, but it's been several months, and we'll be considering it as an agenda item in the near future. So I'd like to stop here because that is one of the things that we don't have on the books, RSA 72, and it's becoming more and more important as we move forward on these energy issues to create incentives for businesses to invest in this type of renewable energy. So I highly recommend to the council that we put this on the agenda as soon as possible, the adoption of RSA 72. Obviously, that will have to be drafted into an ordinance, but there you go. Or resolution, or however legal counsel. I'm not sure of the process, but legal counsel will know. We just need to do it. If anybody has any questions about what RSA 72:61-72 is and hasn't had a chance to read it, we can do so this evening. It's not very long. Would you like to read it?
Well, I'm going to read it too out loud. I just had, my first question was about the small wind power energy systems. Is that defined in that
In the RSA? If you could pull it up, I don't want to mislead anybody.
Yeah, let me see if I can find it here a second.
Yeah. And while he's pulling that up, I'll end the letter with, finally, some of the communities at the kickoff meeting of the Municipal Roundtable have already adopted or are considering the adoption of resolutions that outline their community's energy policy. I will be forwarding examples of these resolutions for your consideration during our council meeting on July 11th. I have not had the time to forward to Dory more than the resolution for 100% renewable by 2050, I believe, that the Concord Council just passed on Monday. So that was passed unanimously, and they have a 15-person council. So I know a lot of work is being done on this type of issue throughout the state. It's important that we as a council adopt an energy policy so that the community can start strategizing, the business community as well can start strategizing how they're going to adapt to things that are coming down the pike with energy. So I have a brief overview I'd like to share with you that Concord went through. So when I spoke to a member of the Concord City Council, he said that, and this is just some notes, it's important to educate the community and take time to get input from the community. So I'm not suggesting that tonight that we adopt this resolution that's in your packet. However, I think it's very important that we have the discussion and we talk about what's in our master plan and how we want to either move forward with the New Hampshire Climate Action Plan or go beyond that to 100% renewable energy policy. If you read the policy, the resolution that I included in your packet, it's what they're moving forward, that's their goal, but it's in anticipation of, it's not binding. You're not saying that by doing these things you have, you're mandated to do it. It's the goal. So what they did in educating the public is they really took some time to gather documentation that really shows through proven performance in other communities how it really does result in lower energy costs. Because I think if you talk to different businesses throughout the community, one of their concerns is high energy costs. And if we can reduce energy costs for businesses, for residents, that's a win-win situation. And we could borrow some of that documentation from them if we would like. And they talked about it makes it much easier for the business community to adapt to the changes in the energy sector if they have a clear understanding what the governing body and the community's policy as a whole is with regard to energy. So they're able to do their planning ahead, and it's a more predictable environment. So that's what we want to do in order to welcome people into the community to invest their dollars, invest their livelihood, invest their lives in the community, is to make a predictable and stable environment, create a predictable and stable environment. So their timeline is they started this process in the fall of 2007. They have their energy committee, and their energy committee, they were given the task by the city council to come up with a strategy as how they're going to achieve this 100% renewable energy policy by 2050. So, there's going to be that effort will take some time, but that's what they've tasked their energy committee to do. And then they met with the chambers, and they brought on different organizations within their community, the hospital, who is one of their biggest users of energy in their community, and they got buy-in all the way around. So then they brought the resolution forward in April. They had the public a hearing on the resolution in May, and July 9th they approved it. So you're looking at when they really got into gear, it was about a 5-month process. It doesn't have to be that long for us. It depends on how the council wants to move forward. But I hope you've had a chance to review Chapter 4 of your master plan. And so there's some concrete things we can do. Do you have the RSA 72 up?
There's actually several.
Yeah, there's several. It's 72, 62 through 72, so there's multiple.
Defines solar energy systems, defines wood burning systems, defines, to a point, small wind power energy systems, which is probably going to be one of the bigger areas to think about, because I'm pretty sure no one wants a 200-foot tower in the backyard of someone's house. But at the same time, there are several different energy systems that are in there that can be done. But
There are tax incentives for it.
yeah, so I mean it's going to be pretty comprehensive and take a lot more work. Some of these have been repealed. The application process refers back to several different RSAs. So making the roadmap is going to be a little more.
Concord's already adopted this,
Yeah,
and I don't think it's going to be as difficult as you may think. We'll
Yeah,
use legal
just-
counsel expertise and.
Just
Yeah.
to make sure we get it right.
Right.
It's not going to be just something we read out right tonight.
No, we're not going to do, but I'm just saying we need to get on the agenda if we're going to do, if there's a,
Right, so,
yeah.
Yeah, I just want to say I agree. There's a lot of different definitions that are most of them, but I think specifically what you're talking about is 7262, which is just saying each city and town may adopt an exemption for assessed value for property tax purposes for persons owning real estate property, which is equipped with solar energy system as defined in RSA 7261. So we can also look at that and say just maybe not just solar, but as you're saying, small wind power.
And it
If
comes
that so
at
pleases.
the timing's good because we just had at the planning board, we had a presentation by an individual. It was a conceptual review. And one of the questions asked by a member of the planning board is, since it's new construction, what are their plans to use renewable energy in the construction of this building? And the response immediately from the business owner was, well, we need incentives. So this leads us down that path. And if we really want to incentivize people, whether they're residents or businesses, to move towards renewable energy, this is one way we can do it. So any further discussion with regard to RSA 72? If not, could we make arrangements to get that on the agenda as soon as possible in August?
You want it for August?
Yeah.
Okay.
Are you talking August 8th? Or are you talking the second meeting?
Whatever meeting in August you were most comfortable with, Mr. McNutt, is that the will of the council?
And this is it would be the new ordinance, right? So, because we have to get legal counsel to,
The adoption of RSA 7262.
okay, yeah, let me talk to them. Let me get a schedule from legal counsel about, they have the capacity to write this quickly.
Right. Just say this is what the council wants to do, unless, is that the will of the council, 72?
well, so right now, we're just gonna write this for solar, am I correct? That 7262 is just solar?
We want to adopt tax incentives, so in the
Right.
master plan, it says 61 through 72. We need feedback from legal counsel. Basically, what we want to do is we want to adopt the RSA to provide the community tax incentives for whatever is listed in that RSA. Now, other communities have it. I confirmed with Concord, they have it. I'm sure there are other communities.
Yeah. I mean,
So however they've done it, we just need to know from legal counsel what the right process is, so we can get it into this community. Much like how we adopted RSA 79-E. That was through a resolution, I believe. Yes, that was. So it might be through a resolution. I don't know what they're going to recommend.
mhm.
Counselor Kolowski?
I didn't get a chance to read all of it, but I was looking for if it had minimums established.
So for like solar, it says, a solar energy system means a system which utilizes solar energy to heat or cool the interior of a building or to heat water for the use in a building. Or, which includes one or more collectors or storage containers. So it doesn't really say anything about specific size, just that it's being utilized for a building. And wind power doesn't say anything specifically. We could clearly, in our ordinances, make specifics, but not in this RSA. It doesn't seem to be.
This is something I
Size.
wanted to tell you now because I don't want to have this come back and then have the conversation and waste more time. But I'd be looking personally for something that has some sort of definition of kilowatts or and how's that offset what the incentive is. I guess what I'm saying now is like right now I personally have access to a little windmill setup that generates little to nothing. It's a cool little piece that powers some cell phones, but is that someone's definition to come in and try to seek? Or is it defined? This is a beautiful thing and can be great for this community, but I don't want to see us lurching ahead and forgetting that, oh wait, we didn't really put kilowatt definitions of power in here, or and people are coming in to get. I also have another, just a little tiny solar panel, but to me, that wouldn't be fair for me to come forward and ask for some sort of tax exemption for throwing up a tiny solar panel.
So let's do this. By August 8th, we'll have some examples of how other communities are doing
That'd
this.
be great.
So you can compare and contrast, and then we'll put it on the schedule for whatever the legal counsel advises the format to be for the second meeting in August. Is that good? Does that sound like a plan? Counselor Pope?
I guess my questions, and, we'll be discussing this at the Energy Committee, I'm sure. It says an exemption will be given. Is that a 100% exemption? Is that a 50% exemption?
Counselor Kier?
I think just my clarification on it is you adopt the RSA as a general kind of rule of thumb, and then your ordinance is what gives specifics, and that would have to obviously come back to us saying, this is our sizes, this is how much exemption we want to give as a city. I don't think it's going to necessarily say in the RSA, but that's something that we should definitely have a conversation on and say, what do we want that to be?
Yeah, so, because it refers back to section 7233 through 35 for the application process, and those are also things, applications for exemption or tax credit, they don't give percentages. It also refers to,
It might be an application process much like 79E, where it has to come before the council, and every application is unique, so you put the parameters in on a case-by-case basis.
so I certainly am not against this, I'm for this, because I certainly believe that getting some alternate energy and secondary energy sources are going to be critical in this community, realizing that last month Eversource had a 19-point-something% increase in their delivery charges. And I mentioned that at the last council meeting, so I certainly am not against this. But what I want to do is make sure that we have everything spelled out. Maybe we first adopt the idea and then we adopt the application and the percentages, which I'm not sure if that's the best way, but at least adopt the philosophy and work forward on it. So I have no problem with that. What are some of the limits in town? When it talks about wood burning appliances, it says that doesn't mean a fireplace or
Right.
anything like that, or a hearth or an outdoor fire pit, and all that. But at the same time, within our city, we have regulations regarding outdoor wood burning boilers and the height of the stacks, and here's where you can put them, here's where you cannot. And so it's a great thing. I think it's a very strong move, but I just want to make sure that when we do this, we don't cause conflict and some smoke in someone else's eyes that doesn't deserve it, or someone taking advantage of this, or someone saying, well, we get an exemption, what's the percent? Is it 150, whatever? I want to make sure we have all our ducks in a row and we do this right. So when we do offer this, our businesses are 100% certain, here's what we're doing. Our residents are 100% certain, here's what we're doing and here's what we're able to do. So,
Okay. Mr. McNutt?
If I may, I would offer that we can bring some examples back for the August meeting of, like Concord's ordinance, what some other communities have done for their ordinance, and then maybe refer this to the new Energy Commission because it sounds like there's a lot of nuance here to discuss.
I'm not so sure it's going to be as complicated as all that. We'll know more when we see the comparisons, contrasts and comparisons between the different communities when they've adopted the RSA. And then we can say what the next move is. Councilor Stone?
Do you happen to, off the top of your head, know how many municipalities have adopted this already in New Hampshire?
All I can tell you right now for sure
It's
is
Concord.
Concord has, but I'm sure they're not the only ones.
Okay.
We are not in, there are a lot of other communities that have been doing a lot of work on this already and have had energy committees for quite some time. If you look at some of the paperwork that I included in the packet via Dore from that kickoff meeting, there was an Excel spreadsheet of 4 of the communities,
Okay.
and it does address whether they have energy committees or not. But that is not representative of the 6-city group, and there was talk at the kickoff meeting of also including Hanover and Dover into that group, because they've also have done a lot of work.
Have they also explained how they're doing the granting of percentages of taxes?
We didn't get into that at the.
Because I guess that's probably a big question a lot of
Yeah.
people are having right now is how are we going to determine that and what's the fair approach maybe another municipality is doing?
Looks
So
like
what
Lebanon
will-
also did.
Lebanon does it also?
Or they have RSA 72, they adopted in 2013.
Yeah, this RSA has been available for some time. So we just need to move. Counselor Kolowski?
Does anybody recall how we adopted 79E? Did we establish a procedure how we would be handling those in-house first and then adopted 79E? Or did we adopt 79E?
We adopted
and then-
79E. You have to, the statute states the governing body has to adopt this, and then you work on the details.
I just don't want to be, without having the specifics, I don't want to be the first community challenged by someone out there saying you adopted something that said you shall, and we don't have the definition of what we shall do.
Like 79E, that was an RSA that was available to communities for quite some time, I forget, early 2000s. And we did not help ourselves by waiting so long to adopt that authority.
Oh, I know, that just had more clear definition of language. This seems like something that's a great idea, but doesn't have a lot of communities don't have info on it.
Well, it gives you a lot of leeway to make your own definition.
But that's what I'm saying, I want,
You can't make a definition before you
all
adopt it.
all too often for me, we define that we're gonna do something and then it takes a long time to get there. And I'm all for this. I worked on the master plan, but I want to be like ready to go.
I think I hear you. But so the action plan right now is we'll have the comparisons and contrasts, and you'll have to look at that in your packet. I mean, the information will be there. We can discuss it on the 8th in more detail. And then in the meantime, Mr. McNutt will be working with legal counsel to see how would we move forward with adopting it? What's the right vehicle? Is it a resolution like it was for 79E? And then we move forward to that from there. So is there somebody, and I know, Ms. McKenzie, is there anything you would like to add to the energy discussion? Because I know you've been working on this stuff for a long time.
Rebecca McKenzie, Ward 2. This is a very forward-looking body who is looking at these issues. Typically, this kind of an effort rises up from the community. And this is the first time I've seen that a city council is really considering this very important move forward with renewable energy. So I just want to commend you for this kind of visioning and forward thinking. I do think that, there are some technical questions that have to be answered about this. But without these incentives, it really is prohibitive for people to really invest in this transition to renewable energy. So the work's very important that you're considering, and I'm really thankful for that. And I'm looking forward to how the Energy Advisory Committee can be helpful in helping to move important policy forward like this. And so I have a whole folder full of resolutions that are really remarkable about what is being done not only in New Hampshire but around the country for these initiatives, and be glad to share any of that information with you at any time. So I just want to commend you for being careful, but also looking at this as something that's critically important, not only for our community. The cost of energy is rising and will continue to rise with fossil fuels, and renewable energy is really not only important economically for our community, but also for the health and well-being of our citizens. So anyway, thank you very much, and for our global concern about climate change. As you know, the figures are staggering about what's happening globally, and so all of these initiatives are really critical and really important for us and our children and our grandchildren. So thank you very much for really moving forward and making this an initiative of the leadership of our community. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So I want to read something real quick from the master plan, and that's chapter 4. And this is under the subparagraph of local, regional, and statewide context. At the time of this writing, public attention at the local, regional, and national level is increasingly focused on energy, climate, and the relationship between public policy and environmental sustainability and resilience. At the state level, energy efficiency and renewable investment in Claremont will help New Hampshire reach its ambitious energy savings goals. The goals and strategies of this energy chapter have been developed with awareness and understanding of the New Hampshire Climate Action Plan, and I would recommend that you refer to that if you have time. The New Hampshire CAP, Climate Action Plan, has chosen a midterm goal of reducing greenhouse gas emissions below 1990 levels, 20% by 2025 and 80% by 2050. You could capture, one of the options to the council is you can capture that in a resolution. You can say, we are adopting the New Hampshire Climate Action Plan, and this is our resolution. We can move forward beyond that to what some communities are doing, which is a resolution saying 100% renewable energy by such and such a date. So it's really us taking a position on what we as a community want to work forward and capturing that in a resolution, which is the overall policy umbrella. Councilor Pope?
I agree. And I'll add one more thing. I mentioned earlier the Eversource rate increase. But this also becomes more critical. I've worked with several manufacturers in the area. One manufacturer in particular, whose owners, the president and the vice president, former president, now the vice president of the company, have mentioned that in the New England area, especially in our area, we have lost I'll check my figures, but it's like 8,800 megawatts of power generation in the last 15 years, 10 to 15 years. So it's going to become critical for our businesses and even residents to start looking at some self-generated or renewable energy generated sources, because those megawatts are not going to come back easily. That's things like the Vermont Yankee closing down, several hydro dams closing down, huge energy manufacturers closing down. Even Wheelabrator was putting into that, and so that has hurt a lot of business and does nothing but drive energy prices up, and also puts a critical strain, especially since we are pulling a very large portion of our energy from Hydro-Quebec. So I am in support of this. Don't ever get me wrong that I want to be careful on this, because I do realize the urgency of something like this as well.
So I think I hear your concerns. I think we have an action plan for the immediate future with regard to RSA 72. And I will continue feeding you information on different resolutions and what communities are doing. The continued participation in the municipal roundtable on this issue is going to help us. We haven't even begun to get into some of the specifics that some of these communities are doing. It's cutting edge. I mean, it is really different. And we just don't want to be behind on that power curve. Claremont represents the biggest community in Sullivan County, and we have a real opportunity to ensure that we are attractive from an economic perspective, both for residents and businesses. Because what's the one thing that all companies want to reduce? Overhead. Electricity costs are part of your overhead. As far as the municipality, some communities are focusing strictly on municipal buildings and making sure that they're as energy efficient as possible, or that they're adopting 100% renewable energy. They're focused on those buildings that they have direct control over. Sometimes communities are coupling that with, energy goals for the entire community. It's really what we want to do both in the short term, mid-term, and long term, and capturing that in a resolution. That would be our energy policy. A master plan is a guiding document. We need to take that and couple it with other things and create the policies that set the stage. Does that make sense? There was one more thing that I wanted to talk about. So if the focus is on municipal buildings, the direct impact is to the taxpayer, right? If we can reduce the cost of the overhead, then that's a benefit to the taxpayer. Another thing, we have wonderful examples in the community, what the city administration has already done to reduce energy costs. We have plenty of examples. That's what captured the attention of the state as a whole and the Conservation Law Foundation. But we also have businesses and members in the community who have done remarkable things on their own. And I will forward to you a document from John Lambert, what he's been able to do. He's won national awards, regional awards, state awards for what he's been able to achieve as a building that's totally I think it's self-reliant as far as energy goes. I have to read the document that he sent me, but reread it. I'll send it to you. It's amazing what we can accomplish if we have a vision and we have a goal, a specific goal that we want to attain. And that's what we're talking about here, is creating that vision and documenting it somehow so we can all work towards it. So the last thing, these communities that were part of the roundtable discussion, they all had done, I believe all of them, correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. McNutt, energy audits. But I believe our last energy audit on municipal buildings was 2011. Isn't that correct?
I will have to double check, because we do,
Yeah.
we may have done some more recent energy audits of like the community center and such. So let me
Okay.
check into that.
Can you check into that, and can we get like a performance review of the energy audit? I thought it was 2011, what we've accomplished and what's outstanding, and if we need to look at revisiting that. Anything else from the council? Yes, Councilor Kowalski.
Can we possibly highlight one of these success stories, like at the beginning of each council meeting, maybe going forward?
Oh, that'd be a great idea. Why not? Right? Why not? It's certainly doable. Want to do that? How does the council feel about that?
I think it sends the overall message of the direction that we're going in, and it doesn't have to be just businesses. It could be success stories that, and because I'm even actually curious, it sparks my interest more knowing a homeowner in town that they don't have to come give a presentation, but we could get the info and talk about how they've saved money. And
Anything else? Excellent idea. It can build momentum. Okay. Well, that's that I think we have a game plan for what we need to do next. I'll be collecting some more information, working with the city manager to, if planning and development has any information along these lines, we can do that. If you haven't had a chance to review the information, the documentation came out of that kickoff meeting, and I highly recommend that you do. Because one of the things that we'll be talking about at a future date is what Nashua is doing with regard to bicycling. It's unbelievable. I never heard of it until we met. So again, these roundtables are a great opportunity to just learn from each other much what you had talked about, Counselor Kolowski, when you wanted to start meeting with other councils. Sometimes an easier way to achieve the same objective is to go to these roundtables when you have members of other councils or their representation there. So, anything else? All right, we have removed item G, as Councilor Pope mentioned. So we're on to committee reports. Does anybody have one? Nope. Well, that's easy. Future agenda items and directives.
I just have one committee report, is that the HTC sent information about 39 Central Street as requested.
Yes, and I appreciate that very much. I will be sending that out. I think you send that just to me, correct?
That's correct. I send it to you
So
first.
I will be sending out to Ray to send out to all of you, so you will have that information. That is the, if you don't recall, that's the property which we refused, no, we didn't refuse the tax deed on. We're waiting for more information, and Councilor Pope's assistance in that with the Historic District Commission is part of that. So there may be more coming from Director Merrill as well. So, any other updates? Future agenda items and directives? So we don't, yes, Councilor Pope?
Yeah, I'm a pain in the neck tonight. So earlier we had the ATV club here.
Yes.
And so I've got asked that long-standing fun question of what is the status of the rail trails and ATVs?
The waiver, are you talking
Yeah,
about?
the waiver.
I have to follow up on it.
Yeah.
It's
I
kind
know
of-
it kind of falls down in the radar when we got a lot of stuff going on, like budgets and stuff, but
An update on that waiver?
Yeah.
Because that was a federal issue.
yeah.
Okay. Anything else? I had a note that I had started writing, and I didn't complete it during the process of the meeting. What it is an update on, I know you've been through the NICE efforts working on landlords that have not been abiding by ordinances.
Mhm.
And I know that some items have gone to court, and we've won the court cases. And if you could, at some point, give us a status of any monies that the city has realized from these efforts through, the legal fees and all of that, and if anything has been deposited into that new reserve account to help you with the issues of property, perhaps demolition or whatever. I know we created that, I just don't know what the activity has been with that account.
Yeah, I know, well, we just had an auction, so I will sit down with Lisa Richmond tomorrow and try to see if anybody has actually cut us a check. I know, but there's certain waiting periods that we have to do after the auction. We have to send some money back if we received more
Right.
than the tax burden was. So let me check with Lisa and see where we are in that process.
It's not necessary to do it in August, but at some point, we probably need an accounting of that. Probably September would be good.
Yeah, some of the issues are not fully resolved yet, so I may structure that as a non-public legal,
Sure.
because some of that stuff is still in litigation.
However you want to do it.
Yeah.
Um,
I may just invite Matt Decker to come to the meeting and explain it in person, because he would be able to answer any nuanced questions.
Okay. Okay. Anything else from the council? I'm not going to add a lot, because I know through review of the minutes, there are a lot of items that we had already wanted on the August agenda, either the 1st or the 2nd. So there'll be plenty, I just have to organize it, which date's going to be, what's going to be on what date. So, nothing else? There's no consultation with legal counsel, so a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Alan's gone.
Okay, so the motion was made by Counselor Pope and seconded by Counselor Stone. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? No. We'll have to ask the Assistant Mayor Chairman.